All right. Well, welcome, Prophet Emmanuel and Pastor Grant. How fun to have you both here in the same room.
Thank you.
It's been fabulous having you here, and Pastor refers to you as his best friend. So we definitely wanted the best friends to be together
That's right.
for this interview. Gosh, I don't know where to start. So I had the privilege of taking you to lunch at Red Robin, which I'm sure most people know by now is your favorite place.
Mm-hmm.
But what I didn't get to ask you, and I'm curious, is what is the main cuisine in Ghana?
Okay. I think we have different cuisines, let me put it that way. But because Ghana has different dialects, so each region, I don't know how you call it, let's say state. If in America you put it as state, like New York, they have the main dish. You go to Chicago, they might have. You go to Dakota, they might have that kind of stuff. But the national cuisine, there's something we call fufu.
Fufu?
That's right.
Okay.
F-U-F-U.
Okay.
So that would be the national cuisine.
And what is it, like a rice-based dish or?
No, it's made of do you know cassava?
The flour or the root vegetable?
The root vegetable.
Yeah.
Cassava and plantain.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen plantain before?
Yes.
Okay, plantain is like a long banana grain.
Right.
Yeah, so
Okay.
yeah, so it's cooked, and then they pound together and make it come out like a dough. You know,
Okay.
then they put soup on it,
Okay.
and yeah, so.
Have you had it, Pastor Grant?
Oh yeah, he's tried. So you can ask him; he will be the best person to explain it, since he, you know.
Do you like it as much as Prophet likes Monster Burgers, or?
Wouldn't be my first choice.
Yeah, that's true. Because you're using your hands, you know.
Okay, all right.
You scoop it in and
And you don't chew, you got to swallow.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's a drop thing.
okay. Fascinating. Okay, thank you for explaining that. That's sounds a world of difference from
That's right.
what we have here.
That's right.
All right, cool. Okay, so, and I'm sorry my intro, I didn't really, I assume people know you're Prophet Emmanuel from Ghana, Africa, been coming to Island Church for the last,
since 2003.
since 2003.
Yeah, that's
wow,
right.
so quite some time now.
Yep.
Just in case there are people out there that don't know, how was the relationship between Island Church and your church's Calvary Redemption Church, right?
That's right.
How was that originally formed, the connection, or how did you guys meet?
Okay. I schooled in New Zealand,
Oh, okay.
you know, in 1994, you know, where Bishop Grant, you know, originally come from. But I didn't know him at that time. So when I left, when I finished my course, left back to Ghana, the Lord led upon my heart to also start a Bible college in Ghana, so which I did. And so I think about 4 years after that, that was 2000.
2000.
So we were going to have a graduation. And so I invited the principal of the college I attended at in New Zealand. So he was going to be the speaker for us in Ghana. And so something happened, so he couldn't make it. So he decided to ask Bishop Grant to come instead.
Okay.
So that was how it happened. And up until that time, I hadn't met him before. He hadn't met me before. So, and he traveled for about almost 2 days from Christchurch all the way to Ghana without knowing whom he was coming to. And that time, it wasn't like today where you have WhatsApp and all those things that you can easily get to know. There was nothing like that. So, yeah, so that was why the relationship started.
Okay, that's awesome. That's amazing. And just, you guys kind of connected right at the start, I imagine. And
Yep.
and then was it really talked about like, well, this is what we want to do, or it just kind of unfolded, going, supporting one another in the boreholes in Africa? And I mean, how did that all come about?
I think the borehole thing, it was not something you would say was part of the whole thing. No idea, nothing at all.
Okay.
And so after that, I think Bishop Grant went back to New Zealand. And so that's how the relationship started. So I think I went back to once to Christchurch where he was. And then after that, he moved up here. So I think that was 2002 or one. So 2003, that was when I started coming here.
Okay.
And so my coming here was more to do with him being my best friend, visiting him once a year, just to come and support him and that kind of thing. So that was how the whole idea was.
Okay.
The borehole thing, I think, let me see, was it about 4 years ago?
2019.
Yes, 2019. I think it was before that, a year before 2019. Every year I do run a pastor's conference in Ghana, which is called Apostolic Prophetic Summit. And so Pastor Grant has been one of the main speakers that every year he will be invited to come.
Okay.
And so he has done that for years. And so one of the conference, I remember the Lord spoke to me. I was praying for him, and I had a word that a prophecy upon him that he was going to be like an oasis.
I remember that.
So the word oasis came, so I prophesied over him. He didn't know what it was, and I didn't understand what it meant. So after the meeting, everything, we just talked a little bit about it. Then we got to understand that an oasis is just a small spring well in the middle of desert. Which is a place that quench the taste of people, because oasis is always in a place where water is very scarce. And so that was the word.
Wow.
Yeah, the Lord that spoke over his life. That is what he was going to be. And so I had no idea. He had no idea. And so I think it all unfolded that the following year, it happened that some of the participants, the pastors that comes from the northern part of Ghana, they brought a petition to me that there was one of the villages there that they are struggling dearly about water. So that was what started the borehole thing.
Wow.
So the thing is divine.
Yes, totally.
There was no plan.
Oh, I love it. I love that.
Yeah.
So when we saw you were showing the video in church last Sunday, and your travels and the difficulty to get to the village and stuff, I mean, the main question on my mind was, how do you find these villages? And then does everybody speak the same language? And you just come in and say, like, start preaching the gospel and say, we want to bring you water? Or how do you make it happen?
Okay, that's a good question. As I said earlier on, in Ghana, we have many dialects. If I wouldn't be wrong, probably over 29 or 30 dialects.
Wow.
So you move from one place to another, let's say you journey about, let's say 1 hour, then you hit a different dialect group, which their language might be different. And so out of that 29 or 30 dialects, I might speak probably about only 2. So up there, whatever they say, I have no clue. But we have a general dialect that when you speak, everybody can understand. So the idea of how we do locate these communities was a result of, because the conference seems to have pastors that comes from these communities. Some of them come from the north, this and that. So they brought that to me that they are in dire need. So when we did that, then we didn't know it was something we were going to continue. We just did it once. So it happened, and the following year, it became something obvious that we have to help because there were more dying needs. What happened in Ghana is that a lot of communities, even in the capital city, that is called Accra, which has about, let's say, about 3 million people or more, they have water crisis at certain areas in the capital city. There are places you can have water once a week flowing. In Kumasi, where I used to live, stadium, we had that problem. It's the capital. So water is a problem. But it's not like a dying need to those that are up there. And so these communities, some of them, we call it the municipal assembly, which here probably you will call it the government sector here that look on the infrastructure and those things for, let's say, the Kitsap.
County or something.
County, that's right, the county. So the government representative in the counties have these huge, enormous requests on their head to help these areas, which they are not able to because they don't have enough funds. And secondly, to reach to these communities, as you saw yourself, is very, very difficult. And so some of those things are there. And also by word of mouth. So some of them heard that there has been a group who has helped this community there. So some of them started tracing to locate our representative who is in the north. So they will go to him, they will call him, they will try and do all those things. Please, can you help us? Can you talk to your guy in Kumasi? Tell him this is our condition, this is this is that. So that is what brought this thing.
Okay, so it sounds like in many instances they're seeking you out because they've heard
A lot.
or they're aware of your conference and what's
Yes.
happening. Okay.
Yeah, because every year we have a lot of pastors that come from different places in Ghana, and most of them comes with this request because they live in those areas, and so they know the needs over there. So
Yeah.
as I speak to you right now, there are numerous communities that are lined up, praying seriously that God will make a way so that we can come to their aid. Yeah.
So a lot of these communities, it sounds like they know Jesus, or some leaders in their community do, or is it like some of these people you're preaching Jesus to them for the first time?
Most of them are Islamic communities.
Okay, so because you say praying to God, so praying to Allah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, some of them, most of them. You may have a few of them that may have church there, here and there, but it's not different. But most of the places we go, most of them are Muslims.
And so,
Good. So that's the question. So
yeah.
the question is, so then why do you go there? And that also is one of the biggest questions to they themselves, because they know that if a church wants to come in and put up a borehole, the church want all of them to become Christians. That has been the pattern. So here we are, we don't put any strings, attached to the things we are doing for them. It's purely humanitarian grounds.
Good.
So that has impacted them more than even if we went in with a condition. So a lot of these communities don't have churches. They don't have churches at all. They don't go to church. A lot of them don't have schools at all. And so now we are having churches in some of these communities as a result of that. So that has been.
Well, thank you. That gives it a lot more insight and paints a picture, more of a picture. So, Pastor, I know you've obviously been to Ghana many times. What has been your experience? Have you gone into some of these villages, seen the wells? Just share a little bit about the impact.
I think probably there is a great need, and the first time I went in there, it felt like this is what it must have been like in the Old Testament times. So primitive, so backward, the needs are so great that it's a bit hard to comprehend initially, because you think, how could people live like this without the basics of water? But they do, and then you see the water that they've been gathering from the rivers or whatever, it's brown. You think, well, you wouldn't even cook in it, but they drink it. And so that would be my impression going into the villages. And a lot of the roads that Prophet Emmanuel has to drive down is literally like driving down a riverbed. And so you saw on the video his truck breaking down all the time. It's a miracle that it's even lasted all these years because of the...
we need to buy you a new truck.
It's phenomenal, the roads, to be honest with you. And the potholes that you have to go down or avoid, or you don't see and you hit, are numerous. So it's a bit of a bumpy ride. But I think the thing that grips you when you go into these villages, these people have a great need that isn't, and while each borehole costs $5,000 to put in, it's not a lot to give them the gift of water when they've had nothing. And so that sort of tugged on our hearts, and so we've just sort of gathered a bit of momentum over the last 3 or 4 years to do what we can, and nothing thrills me more than being able to help the poorest or the poor have water that we in America waste. And, you know, we might drink half a bottle of water and we think, oh, I'm done, and we throw it away, whereas to these people it's extremely precious. So it really grips your heart, really, and you just want to end up helping as best you can.
Yeah. It makes me think of the woman at the well story in the Bible, you know, and he says, come drink the living water, you'll never be thirsty again. And it's such, I mean, water is life, you know, on this earth. And so I just love the story of, you got the word of oasis and you didn't know what it meant. It was this, you really led by God to do this. So it's just beautiful and a great partnership. Definitely a divine partnership.
I think too the way that the area, the chiefs, the 32 chiefs in the district of Wa have a council that the protocol is that you go to them first to get permission to go into these villages. To see the way they've opened up to Prophet Emmanuel and recently made him the chief of water is a pretty significant move. And we might think here in the West it's nothing, but actually for them to do that in a Muslim community is extremely significant. And it really is the kindness of God's opening up these people to the love of God. It's amazing, really. And the other thing is that because you have been going back regularly, that speaks too, doesn't it?
Very much so. Very much so. It's right. Over the years, there has been a lot of different organizations and politicians and whoever you can name them. Most of them have been to some of these places, and unfortunately, most of them could not deliver. So they have this thing at the back of their mind that they just comes there to exploit them or whatever. And so the fact that, as Bishop Grant was saying, that we seems to deliver and we are delivering, so it has blown them to the highest level of their thinking. And they kept asking us this question: what made you people to come here? And I also asked them the same question, and then they said it's God. And so then I use it and start to preach to them the love of God.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, bless you for that work, and it is a privilege for Island Church to be, you know, to be able to be part of that from all this way. So, let's see here. I kind of want to shift gears. I want to know a little bit more about your upbringing, what it looked like. We talked about it a little bit before when I was with you, because I've never been to Ghana or any place in Africa, and I don't think of it as a Christian area, but there are a lot of Christian places in Africa. Is that correct?
Yes, I would think that Ghana, in proportion, there will be more Christian than America.
Wow.
Yeah, if you ask Bishop Grant, will tell you. Not only in a form of numbers, but also in realities. The Christianity in Ghana, you can't compare America to Ghana. It's way up here. In terms of people's commitment, people's love, people's enthusiastic towards God and all those things. It's very up. Yeah. And so we are blessed as a nation in Africa to have such a higher percentage of people depending and serving God in that degree. And so that has been our strength as a nation. You don't hear much about Ghana because it's, I would say that it's a very peaceful country. Yeah, rich in minerals, resources, but most of them has been exploited by, this so-called foreign companies. So, yeah, so that is Ghana.
Tell about the revival that took place and how that happened,
Okay.
because that'll give a good context too.
Okay. Ghana is part of the Commonwealth nations, and so we were colonized by Britain. Yes, in when I was growing up and before I was born or whatever, the Christianity over there would be more like the traditional, like traditional churches, Catholic, Methodist, all those, yeah. So that was it. In 1979, our nation experienced military coup. And then they overthrew the civilian government. And so we entered into that kind of a military dictatorship kind of a rule. And so we saw a lot of brutalization. If I tell you some of them, it's very, very awful. People were publicly displayed, women were displayed naked publicly, a whole lot of things went on. People were killed, a whole lot of stuff. And so as a result, and I don't know what happened, whether it was the judgment of God or I don't know what happened, but in between 79, 80 and 81, we entered into a national drought. And so there was no rain in the country. And it went on a very extensive time. And so we lost most of our food sources. And there wasn't much import also coming because of the military taking over. And so to have a piece of bread, people can queue for 4 or 5 hours before you can get a piece of bread. And that was the order of the day. So people were eating once a day. And a whole lot of things were going on. So we entered into a real hardship. If you talk about hardship, that was it. Scarcity of basic things were not there. And so I think the nation became very desperate. And so a lot of people started seeking God. So people would go to the mountains and fasting and praying, waiting before the Lord, so on and so forth. Then all of a sudden, God started moving supernaturally. We saw a great move of God that came over the country. And so as a result, things started turning around. And that was what brought the massive conversion of a lot of people into Christianity to this degree. And it has carried on till today. Yeah, so in Ghana now, from that move of God, most of the movie theaters in Ghana, most of them were bought by churches. So it got to a point in Ghana we didn't have a movie theater anymore everywhere. But before, when I was growing up, movie theaters would be very full. All of them shut. Churches were buying them every here and there. And clubs, I mean, social clubhouses, drinking spots, everywhere. Churches started springing everywhere. Most of the schools were occupied by churches, everywhere in the country. And then prayer meetings were going on every night. Every night we hear people praying everywhere, from 12 all the way to 4, 5 a.m. in the morning, and people were preaching in public cars, like buses. Like if you are in a bus from here to Bremerton, somebody will be preaching in it. It's all over the place. So,
Wow.
yes, so that was what has brought us this far, and is continuing.
Didn't you go from, say, 25%
Yeah.
believers to up to 65,
Yeah.
70%?
Now I think we're about 70 or above % Christians. Yeah.
So you're saying that the drought, the famine, all of those hardships really were a catalyst for your country as a whole
Yep.
to really turn to God,
Yep.
and that dependency has never waned, it's actually grown.
Yep.
And would you say that's one of the main, or not the main difference between the West and your country
I would say so.
in terms of Christianity?
Yes, I think I would say so.
So we need to have a drought and famine. I think we're on our way. So.
Well, we'll see how God does.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like you're answering it, but it's funny because one of my questions was, you started to preach last week on, change of seasons and how it brings a defect, and I know this Sunday you're going to talk about how to wake up.
That's right.
And so I was going to say, well, okay, interesting. I haven't been able to hear it yet, obviously, but so why did we fall asleep in the first place, and how do you know you're in a sleeping church?
Okay. I think I'm going to share a bit on Sunday. I'm going to share a bit on that, because we have different types of sleeps.
Okay.
As you know, and sleeps at times is a result of natural. It can be a natural thing, and it can also be a calculative thing. And it can also be a circumstantial. And it can also be imposed. Some people sleep not because they want to. It has been imposed on them. And so if you go through all these things, but bringing it into the subject matter of waking up, one of the reasons why a lot of God's people are not in that position, it is more to do with comfort. You see, comfortability is the greatest enemy. But as humans, everybody loves to be comfortable. And so that is one of our biggest enemies today. So we don't want to be hostile. We want to be comfortable. And that is the reason why the church is fast asleep. And so I'm going to share some things on Sunday, how to wake up.
Okay, well, we look forward to that. So you were essentially born in a Christian family and
Yes,
raised Christian?
my mother was a Christian. Yes, my mother was a very prayerful woman. Pastor Grant has met her. Yeah, she was very, very prayerful. And so that was a contributing factor. Yeah, and I also had the privilege to school in a Catholic school. And so we did a bit of prayer, as you know. In Ghana, our schools in our time, every morning before general classes will start, there's something we call assembly. And the assembly was that all the students will line up and we'll say our prayer and that and those things. I don't know about America, but that was what we were doing. And time to time, they might have a service, a church service for us, and so on and so forth. So that also helped contributing to my upbringing in terms of my Christian faith.
All right.
Yeah.
When did you hear God's call in your life to become a pastor?
That's a good question. I think at the age of when I think when I hit about 17, 18, I kind of struggle a bit about my Christian faith and those things, because we are struggling, but I didn't know much about your personal, intimate relationship with God and all those things, but I just had that kind of a Christian, concept towards God. So one day, I think I was there in the midnight and I had a visitation. I didn't know what it was. So something was on me throughout the whole night, and it was kind of, my soul was departing from my body. So that was what happened to me. And so the whole night, it was I didn't know what it was, but that was what happened to me. And so I thought I was dying, thought I was going to die. I didn't know what it was. So early in the morning, the whole night, early in the morning, I quickly rushed to a Catholic church where they used to have a morning service. And so that was what brought the calling of God upon my life. Yeah.
But you didn't become a priest, you became a prophet.
Yes. Initially, I wanted to be a priest.
Okay.
Because I love seeing them, performing in that traditional kind of stuff and those things. And then a friend of mine one day invited me to go to church with him, and he was fellowshipping in Assembly of God. So that was when I got the real encounter really well. So I got baptized over there, and that was when God started the whole thing. And so my calling into the prophetic ministry, it was strange, because at that time it wasn't very much of the noon. And so it was something. And so as I speak to you right now in Ghana, I'm part of those people that they consider the pioneers of the prophetic ministries. Yeah, so as I speak to you right now, I think it was the last few days I received a message that there's an organization in Ghana who is putting up a national program to honor the prophetic fathers of our land. And so I had a message that I've been appointed of one of them. And the whole of the country, I think now we have about 30 million people. So the 30 million people, they have selected 30 prophets in the land, and that they are going to honor on the national scale. So out of that 30 prophets, the message to me is that they have selected about 3 or 4 that they want them to be on the upfront, that they will be praying for the nation on the national platform, and I'm one of those 3 or 4.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, so that was what brought the whole thing. So the prophetic has been an interesting thing, but strange. Had a bit of challenges and persecution at times here and there in the early stages, but
For prophesying things that weren't popular, or
I don't know. The day I was speaking to the guy in Finnish, the guy from New Zealand, if you heard what he was saying, this is how it was. The prophetic is like when we started, we come to a meeting and the Lord will speak to me about you, and I can tell you about the dress you wear, I can tell you about your underwear, the color of your underwear, and all those, yeah, those kind of stuff, yeah.
well, that's not helpful to me. I already know the color of my underwear.
That's right. So people get upset, and at times I can tell the kind of communication you guys were having, like you and your husband when you were coming to church, the kind of communication you were having in your car.
So it would make people very uncomfortable.
At times, yes. So people were a bit afraid at times. People get scared. So I can tell you some of the things you were talking on the way to church. So you guys were saying this. You said that. You said this. You said that. You said that. What? So that kind of thing. And So I think 2 days ago, I spoke to a guy in Finnish. He's from New Zealand, And he was in the same class with me in New Zealand when I was there in '94 studying in the Bible school. So he's a Kiwi, but he's now in Finnish. So I got to know his number. So I called him. We started talking, and he told me, "Oh, I was talking about you. I was talking about you some days ago." And I said, "What it was?" He said, "I was telling somebody how I used to drive you into New Zealand churches, the Anglican people, and you would prophesy to them, and their eyes would go like this." Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that has been some of my journey. Yeah.
Fascinating. What's something that you've prophesied about Ghana or something in Africa that really stands out that you've seen come to pass, or is there anything like that you could share?
So many things.
So many things.
So many things. When did Danny leave? I came here, I think Danny, it was...
Maybe 2020.
Okay. So I came here, I think it was 2019 or whatever. So we had a meeting down here, and I think it was a youth meeting or something. And then Danny, I look at Danny and say, Danny
Smith?
That's right. He will tell you. And he looked at me and said, "What do you say?" And I said, "Well, when is your 10th year here?" So he told me, I said, "On the 10th year, the Lord said, things are going to be clear to you. You will know what to do." And that time, he was in the place of contemplating what to do, whether you should stay, whether you should move, whether you should do that. And then the exact following year, that is what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's not here anymore.
That's right. So there are many of them.
Yeah.
So many of them. So many. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. So that is what it is. And at times I can see things that are going to happen, see things that is coming, a whole lot of things. Yeah, be in the church and start seeing things happening over people, telling them and all those things. So,
is this gift? Did you know you had it since you were very young, or was there a specific moment that you could recall, or time period in your walk where it started to develop, and you just knew that God was, giving you this gift? Or
I think I wouldn't say that I knew that I was going to be prophet or something, no. But when God called me, I think I had a deep sense of unrelented commitment. So I was committed to God in a very strange way, to a point that I was staying in classrooms. Because every night I'll be praying. Every night. I'll be praying from 12 midnight all the way to about 5 a.m. every day. And I did that for years.
it's just so fascinating you just said that, because in my mind, I was just listening to somebody and he was saying that you're not going to find somebody really strong in the gifts that isn't a prayer, that somebody who's totally seeking after God relentlessly, really, in a way that most people don't even fathom, really.
That's right.
And so there, you just confirmed that.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
right. Yeah. So that was what I happened to me. So I will be praying. I mean, that was it. I did that for years. Excuse me. And then all of a sudden, I started seeing things, started hearing things, God started showing me things that were happening. Even before I went to New Zealand, that time I was having a church. So I went to church one day. I told them, I said, the Lord spoke to me that he's going to send me to a very far country that I don't know. And that time I've never heard of New Zealand before. And I told my church, I said that the Lord said that the same month I will have a passport, that will be the same month I will travel. Mm. And I had no idea what it was. And that's what happened, exactly the same. So that kind of thing. So very accurate and very strong sense. And so the prayer has been my, I would say, the platform for God to pour this grace upon me. So I have maintained that now. So I pray 5 hours a day, 4 hours a day. That is my life. That is what I do. And I also do a lot of fasting. Yeah. Every year I'll fast no less than 4 months, 5 months, a year. I've done that for years.
Yeah.
So I thank God so much for my friend. So when I come here, I can enjoy Red Robin. And
Live it up.
yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing all that. I think people really need to hear that.
Thank you.
That's good. Pastor Grant, is there any subject matter or topic burning question or something?
What about just talking about the price that you have to pay to enter into a level of giftedness that God can use? You know, like, how did you develop the prophetic gifting? Was it purely based out of your prayer life, or how do you grow in that gifting?
Yeah, I think to every activity of God over man's life, it always comes with a price tag. And so you will notice that most of the major prophets in the Old Testament, they were men of devotion. So you will notice that Elijah, Elisha, Jeremiah, Isaiah, those people, they were men of devotion, which means they will commit themselves to God a certain period of time, totally just God. And so I realized that there was a dawning and a hunger upon me to connect to God in a higher degree. And I realized that the only way I could do that was prayer and fasting and also studying the Word. And so I started doing it. And the more I started doing it, I realized that God started doing some amazing things, incredible things that I've never imagined before. Those days, we'll be going, let's say, Sunday we'll be traveling to Bremerton. So I will tell them that, hey, when we get to Bremerton, the house we are going, the place we are going, this is what the food they are going to serve us. And we get there, that is the exact food they will give to us. That kind of thing. So prayer became the tipping point.
The verse that I've been intrigued about in recent days is of Elijah, where it says in the scripture, before whom I stand. And my thought had been, we need prophets who will stand before God rather than, just in and out. Do you want to just talk about that, just the whole price tag? Because I think in the Western world, we would like it given to us on a plate. We don't really want to pay a huge price to make progress. We'd, like, the persevering in prayer is a huge thing, really, isn't it? Rather than just, I'll do it for a week and see what happens.
Yeah.
If nothing happens, then obviously people give up.
Yes, true. It has to be a way of life. It has to be a way of life. It means you don't finish it. It's a continuity thing. So you do it as a way of life. You are paying.
So is it a mindset? You set your mind, this is what
that's right.
I'm supposed to do.
That's right. And I also came to realize that God is never going to be committed to you unless you play your part. So I had that understanding. And because I had that understanding, there was no way I could find any means. Because I knew that the only means God will be connected to me, commit himself to me, is for me to play my part. And my factor is to connect to him by prayer. Because God doesn't need me for anything, but I need him for everything. So I need to make sure that he is pleased in a way that he can show mercy to me. And so that has been the driving force. So I don't know, people say I've bent out and those things. I don't understand, because you can't get your car starting without the fuel. So that is hard. So I pray I pray when I'm sleeping. I pray in the plane. At times I'll be in the plane. I can pray for 4 hours in the plane. Somebody's seated here and I'm praying in tongues. You know, because if I want God to committed to me, then I need to play my part.
It's a bit of a foreign concept, a Western mindset of having God commit to us, because we naturally assume that He is.
Yeah.
But to actually play our part in response to His love and grace to be all that we can be, it does require effort on our part.
That's right. That's very important. That you read Second Chronicles says that if my people that are called by my name shall humble themselves and turn away from their wicked ways and seek my face, I, the Lord, will hear them from heaven. And so the healing of the land will never happen unless God's people turn from their wicked ways, humble themselves, and seek His face. But we always want the healing of the land.
We want the microwave version, not the crock pot version. That's our problem.
That's true.
We want it instantly rather than have to pay the price.
You are very right, but the little I've known it doesn't work. Even though a lot of people might say the gifts of God are irrevocable, that's fine, but you can have a gift and still not be effective.
Yeah.
Because your gift always has to be renewed. You know, you have a driver's license here. You have to renew it. And what does that mean? You have to revalidate it to the system so that they get to know that you are still alive. You haven't died. Or that's... And
I lost your eyesight.
that's right. So that's what they do that. But as you said, in the church life, people want things to just happen because He's a sovereign God.
So what do you think, where do you think the Western churches, as you come in, where do you think we're at? What would be some strategic keys that we could put in place to accelerate us into God's purpose, destiny, favour upon us?
I think one of the things my personal observation and experience in the Western world is that the Western world are not allowing God to be God. And what I mean is that their dependency on God is not up to the way God can sovereignly come down. And I think the Western world has everything in place for them. So they are comfortable with it. You know, so that reason, God never comes down unless there is a desperation. And the Western world is not desperate enough. So that is how it is.
Like the Kurungana, desperate.
Yes, people
so
are
you
desperate.
go and pray.
Yeah.
How do you sustain over the long haul that hunger for God? What's worked in your life to sustain yourself? I mean, obviously you've mentioned prayer, but for the average person, how do they get hungry? How do they sustain that hunger?
Okay, let me put it this way. It's like riding a bicycle. If you want to keep riding a bicycle, if you want to keep your balance, you have to keep the speed. Because the moment you drop the speed, what happens? If you are riding a bicycle, what happens? So if you want to keep going, you don't lose the speed. And it's like aeroplane. If you want to keep flying, you got to keep the engine running. So that's how I see it. It's like if you stop breathing, you die. So the very thing that brought you here, you can't afford to lose it. Because if you lose it, you cease to exist. And that is my mindset. And so that is what I've kept in it for now, because I've seen a lot of people that were powerful. We started with a lot of people in my level, powerful, the same level and those things somewhere, but they are no more. Because some of them, they got to a place and then they felt so comfortable. Because, I mean, you can't fly and, I mean, you're going to like from London to New York. And then halfway, the pilot say, hey, guys, I'm tired. I think I'm just going to lower the engine. You can't do that. And so we never settled. Every day has to be a new chapter. Yeah, and that has been my motivation, and that is what has kept me to now. Yeah. Strange things. I've seen some strange things. Some of these, some of the chief Muslims. One of the time we went up there, I think it was last year. Some of the chiefs, I started prophesying to him. It was just last year. I said that this is what the Lord is telling me about this community. This is the problem of your ancestors. This is the problem. This is the reason why the place is not developing. Is this and this, that, this. I don't live there. I don't know the culture. I don't know anything. And he's one of the top chiefs in Ghana. He said what I said exactly the same. It's accurate. So that is how it works. Yeah. But in church world, it gets to a point where people get a little bit scared. So like when I first came to Island Church, I couldn't openly prophesy here because the more I prayed, anytime I come, the more I prayed, the Lord said to me, the people are not ready. I've been coming years and I won't prophesy. The Lord said, the people are not ready. And so I said, Lord, so what is, I said, okay, I'll give you a word, you preach prophetically. But don't prophesy individual, because if you prophesy individually, no, because they are not ready. And so God has let me know that the atmosphere is now broken. So now people are ready. But before, you can't do that.
You said the atmosphere was broken?
Yes.
The atmosphere of what, fear or unbelief?
Bishop Grant can tell you.
Resistance.
Yeah. It was hard. I mean, when he first came here, if he tell you the kind of battles he has to go through here, yeah, so it was unprecedented.
Wow.
Yeah. People wouldn't lift their hands and worship. No. You would never find people openly expressing their love as we saw on Sunday. Never. If anybody ever told you that this church will come to this level, they will say, nah. Yeah, so this man has really labored. And he has stayed consistently faithful to God. And that's why we see what we see today. It was as cold as anything you can think about. I remember one time I had the opportunity for me to sit in one of the their leaders' meeting, the elders. And one of the elders was going to go out because if they were talking about praying out loud.
Together.
That was how serious it was. Yeah. So if I say the atmosphere has been broken, you know what I meant.
Well, praise God for that.
Yeah. It's been good. This man has lived.
What would you say, would be our next steps? Your encouragement to us at Island Church. What are some things that we could hone in on? Things that we could, maybe do better, or?
I believe the Lord. One thing I've learned is that God is a God that honors and rewards. So if one person shows a commitment to God, God can choose to honor that person's faithfulness and make things happen. But one of the things I will encourage and recommend is that the house needs to come to a place where they will understand spiritual authority. That is the key. If the spiritual authority comes to a very healthy level, uh, God will thrive in this house than ever.
So what do you mean by spiritual authority in this house?
Spiritual authority means that we have to be under, there's something we call divine order, which means that, for instance, God said to Joshua, tell the people to walk around the wall once a day. So whether the people agreed, whatever, since it's an instructions from heaven, they followed. The following day said, let them do the same. The third day. And the last day said, let them do that 6 times. Now, most often when we read the Bible and we listen to some of these things, we think it was an easy thing. You're talking about pregnant women, children, old women, old men. God knew all these things, but he said, let them walk 6 times. And so, in the environment where spiritual order is highly appreciated, the Spirit of God thrives. Because God operates by instructions. There is something in the spiritual authority we call applied obedience. Okay, the applied obedience means that it has nothing to do with your will, nothing to do with your right, nothing to do with your feelings. It's just an absolute obedience to what you've heard. The military has that. That is why military is the most organized sector in the government. If you look at all the government agencies, military is the most organized body and very effective because they operate by instructions, not by consensus. So in military, you can't say, I have my right. No. Your right doesn't work here. You operate by instructions. If you have a problem, you finish your duty, then you go and make a complaint. That is the military. And so until we bring that part back to the church, the Spirit of God won't thrive the way it's supposed to thrive. And I think that is my recommendation, that I will recommend that the church here will come to that realization that now the atmosphere is broken. So we need to align ourselves more with spiritual authority. So when we come to church, we know that we have come to the presence of God. And so whatever he wants is what we do. Simple as that. And that is what causes all these things to happen. We've seen so many miracles, and at times it's just common instructions, and then it happens. So many miracles. I've seen so many. And it's
So would you say our lack of understanding of authority prevents miracles or hinders miracles from happening?
Yes. If you look at people who operate in the power gifts, supernatural, at times people can't stand them. People think they are authoritative, they think they are bullying, they think they are domineering. That is how spirit world is. That's how I operate. Because, for instance, Elisha asked Gehazi, he said, take this my staff, go to the house. This woman has lost the son. Go to the house, lay the staff on the boy will come back to life. But one condition, on your way from here to the house, don't greet anybody. And if anybody greets you, don't respond. Now, how do you do that in the culture where greeting is the integral part of respect and courtesy. So can you imagine that you are walking towards somebody you know in your neighborhood and he's greeting and you ignore the person? How would that feel? And so that is how spiritual world operates. And so until the people comes to that realization that when we come to church, it's not about me, not about you, not about her, not about him, it's about God. So what he wants is what we are here for. That is what makes him thrive among us. Yeah, so that is what I would recommend. Spiritual authority. It will cause the Spirit of God to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's powerful and a lot to think about.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. I'm just sitting here thinking, how did I get to be sitting here listening to you guys talk about this? And I have not been at Island Church in these past years that you referred to. I know, Pastor, you've been the pastor of this church for, what was it, 21
20
years now?
20
years. There's so much that I haven't seen, I'm not privy to. I'm just so blessed. My family's blessed that we came into this church when we did.
I think too on the area of spiritual authority in the Western world, as Pastor Emmanuel explained, it's like you're swimming upstream to the mainstream of the expression of Christianity in America. To actually be a church that wants what God wants, we're here for Him. I'm well aware that we're swimming upstream, and that not everybody likes that approach, wants that approach. So there's certainly known a measure of opposition to that over the years, because I think if in the church we understand that church is for God, it's not actually for us. We come for Him. It makes a huge difference, but the problem is many people come because they want their need met. And their need is met when we're here for Him. That's just how it works. But because we come with our primary need and God's need second, it's sort of like we miss the boat on both occasions, don't we?
Yes, you're right.
So it's a whole mind shift that we've got to just keep on pursuing and emphasising that we're actually here for God. And probably in the last, I would say, two years or so, I've said to the church, my main job is to attract God to Island Church. Mm-hmm. I'm here to please Him, not you. Mm-hmm. And in the pleasing of Him, I'm hoping that you might be pleased, but actually I'm here to please Him. Mm-hmm. And that might sound arrogant, but it's not meant to. It's meant to, because I've realised that if in the Western world, if the way we've done church previously was effective, things would be different in America.
That's true.
And so we need a different approach. And my view is that we need to be people who want God, desperately want God, and it's all about Him. It's actually not about us. But God in His mercy, when it's all about Him, will meet our needs. Yeah. It's just how good He is. But we've got to get the focus right, the chief domino right. And I say to people too that, since I brought on some of these younger guys as elders who could lead worship, we start with 30 minutes of worship. And as a result, we've known unusual unity and joy in being together. Whereas previously, you might have debates or arguments or disagreements, but actually the unity that we enjoy as elders. I'll go home every elders meeting, Jenny, and say, how was your meeting? I'll say, Jenny, what do you mean, how was the meeting? It's always a great meeting, because we get the focus right.
That's right.
We enjoy a unity and being together. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
So all our meetings are great meetings.
That's wonderful.
So that's what I say, that I'm here to attract God, whether that's, people might think that's not the right terminology, or they might be offended by that language. I do believe that that's my main job, is to do my part to attract God to Island Church.
That's great.
and then everything else will flow from that.
That's very true. Wonderful.
And that sounds, I mean, that's a maturity in your walk.
Well, you learn it the hard way, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're very thankful.
Well, I don't know what to say except thank you, both of you, so much. What a privilege to sit here. Just one last thing. It's sort of the gimmicky part of the interview is I had this thought when we were talking about doing the interview or the podcast. You know, what on earth is God doing? So, Prophet, what on earth do you see God doing in Ghana, in Africa, in the next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, if anything stands out to you?
Let me be honest with you. I think heaven is a bit silent. Heaven is a bit silent now. The reason being that the church is not in good place. So even when God speaks, they can't differentiate his voice from other voices. The church is in a state of confusion. And so what I believe God is doing right now is to clean the house. That is what is happening all over the world.
Okay.
Yes, there has been a lot of a fake move of God and manipulatives, and a whole lot of things are going on right now. So now the church is not in position to hear God's voice because people are confused. They don't know what to believe because of what is the fragments that is happening right now. Because now the church are major in the minors. The things that are not necessary is what our attention is now focused on. Why should we come to church and argue about who speaks in tongues, who doesn't speak in tongues, who doesn't do it? You know, that kind of thing. And it's all over the place. And somebody will rise up and say, God says this, God said that, God said. It's all over the place. So the church is in a place where there is a need of house cleaning. And that is what is happening right now. Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. That's a great place to end.
Thank you,
so
guys.
much.
You're
Thank you.
Well.
Thank you.